has never been a more important time to move in a vegan direction. Whether you're ready to start, restart, or re-energize your vegan or plant-based practice, this podcast is for you. I'm Michelle Olander, life coach, vegan, ADHD matriarch, travel lover, and smoothie loather. And I know that it's the details that get in the way of your vegan journey. But I like to believe that the obstacle is always the way. So every week we meet here where I translate the tools of life coaching and Stoic philosophy. I bring you actionable tips, some laughs, interesting guests, and vegan ideas for everyone at any age. All to help you veg your best. Episode 221, and it's Thanksgiving week here in the United States, my veg your besties. Happy Thanksgiving. And there are lots of you, lots of people hitting the road to share space and time and meals with family members and friends. And like every other beautiful thing in the world, there can sometimes be some downstream ripple effects, some unexpected consequences to getting together with friends and family for what can sometimes feel like forced togetherness, gratitude, and love. And I'd like to arm you this year with a phrase that has gotten me through many an awkward or unpleasant dinner. And that phrase is, "Oh, interesting. Could you send me a link to where you learned that?" Oh, and if you can make it sound agreeable and not dripping with sarcasm, that's good. "Oh, interesting. Could you send me a link to where you learned that?" Because when I'm confronted with someone saying things that I don't agree with, I also have to recognize that I myself believe things that others don't agree with and push back on. So I want to model for myself and for my grandchildren that I'm here to learn. But kids, there's a lot of information out there, right? And there's a lot of false, or at the very least, misleading information. And I thought we would talk a little about that this week from the lens of Veg Your Best, from the lens of people moving towards a vegan or plant-based lifestyle. False knowledge, wrote George Bernard Shaw, false knowledge is more dangerous than ignorance. And of course, I think none of us, not one of us, is immune to that. All of us know that once upon a time, in some area or another, we thought things that we no longer think of as accurate. Most of us used to think something and now realize it was BS, or maybe you call it baloney or horse hoggy. And of course, I'm sure there's one or two of you out there who are like, nope, I was always right about everything right from the beginning. And I always will be, Michelle. But for most of us fallible humans, the real truth is that this is a very big, very complicated world with loads of moving parts and fallible folks. And during this human journey, we simply do not know what we don't know. We don't know what we don't know. And what with being busy and all, it's pretty hard to spend tons of time thinking about all the things we don't know. And many of us, me included, can kind of check out when the subjects become super complicated, or when the energy between the different viewpoints on a subject when that energy becomes negative or derisive, and we can start to adopt groupthink, just as a strategy, as a simplicity strategy. Groupthink, to adopt the ideas that come out of the groups where we feel more connected or where we feel more in sympathy with. And that does not lead to more thoughtful action based on knowledge. It makes sense. It's very, very human, but honestly, it's not a recipe for growth. But I for sure get it. To really learn challenging topics, we need to be comfortable with not knowing what we think, with not knowing who is right. critical thinking is not always super fun. It's often not very satisfying. This is an aside, but the president of France, Emmanuel Macron, is often lampooned for saying en même temps, which means, I think it just means at the same time or nonetheless. So the president of France will say, well, there's this big issue, there's this big problem facing France. And at the same time, en même temps, the solutions are difficult and not without problematic consequences. And people tend to make fun of it. They tend not to like it. They prefer unequivocal, right? They prefer categorical, unambiguous. This is the way it is. Complicated, going into all the details of the complication, is kind of a buzzkill. But from my point of view, at this point in my life, I would say very, very, very few important topics are simple. Very few are straightforward. Very few work one way all the time. Now you don't need to know any more about it. And personally, I think if someone tells me something is simple and always works that way, my skin gets a little crawly. Now, some of you may know I've had a bunch of doctor appointments this season, and I've told you before, this was my 2024 resolution to get caught up with 10 years worth of avoiding certain things. So my life lately has been going to docs a lot to investigate my thyroid, which is slightly wonky. But the thing is, I feel pretty great most of the time. And if there's one thing I've learned lately, it's how uncomfortable this whole process that's been going on for a few months now, how uncomfortable many of my friends have been with it. Michelle, why have you not got this all settled yet? Is there a plan? Why don't you have closure? How many times are you going to be scanned and poked and tested? When's this all going to be wrapped up? And the reason is because if you pull one string, other stuff happens. That's the metaphor for me. It's very hard to completely run down all the unintended consequences of any decision. And if you're a medical expert, if you're a healthcare provider, of course, you probably think you can fix, that's in air quotes, you can fix one thing, but there can be so many unintended consequences, especially in the areas that are not your specialty, because you don't know what you don't know. Now, if someone had to save my life today, well, then the options get much, much clearer, because right now there's only one goal, that's to keep me alive. But if someone is helping me to keep feeling great, keep staying active, help me make the best decisions for the next 35 years, there are so many more nuanced options and the path is less obvious. It's not because anyone's right or wrong. It's just complicated. And I have seen a lot of people I talk to lately very uncomfortable with the idea that there are not simple answers. And that's particularly relevant when navigating this huge landscape of health and food systems and big pharma and lifestyle choices and vegan living, which is pretty much the exact area that I advocate for and coach on, limiting and eliminating the consumption of animal products to the extent that it's possible and practicable. But here in our hyper-connected age, misinformation about nutrition, about sustainability, decisions about science and ethics, half-truths spread faster than ever. Amplified by the social media, people selling magic pills and machines and books and tools, and yeah, even coaching. And this climate of argument and all or nothing claims and sales, it can be really uncomfortable when you're learning to build a vegan or a plant-based practice. And I know that it really puts people off when they feel as if they're going to be called on to advocate scientifically in front of Congress before they can begin leaning in, that you're going to have to defend yourself for every choice you make around the Thanksgiving table. And that, I want to tell you that there's a reason that this feels so unpleasant and so impossible, and it's called Brandolini's Law. Sometimes the shorthand is the BS, the baloney asymmetry principle. You could call it the horse feathers asymmetry principle, nonsense asymmetry principle. Brandolini's Law is the idea that it takes much more energy to debunk a falsehood than to create and spread a falsehood. Brandolini's Law, aka the BS asymmetry principle. Asymmetry meaning on one side it's asymmetrical, it's not even. On one side, super easy to say something with no proof, with no sources, with no evidence. And on the other side, to ask about it, to refute it, to take it out of currency, tons of effort. The BS asymmetry principle. And you can opt out of this, but to opt out of it, it really helps to know that it actually exists in the first place. On previous episodes, we've talked about heuristics, those mental shortcuts, those mental models that we humans use to get through the day that help us to expedite things so that we don't have to dig deeply and question every single thing we need to accomplish. But this particular heuristic is here to help you thoughtfully manage your plant-based journey amidst all those challenges that pop up. And it's not new. A lie, said Churchill, a lie can get halfway around the world before the truth even gets its pants on. So Brandolini's Law, the BS asymmetry principle, it reminds us that it takes much more energy to debunk a falsehood, to get rid of misinformation, than it does to create and spread one. Whether it's myths about protein deficiency on a vegan diet or exaggerated claims about certain superfoods, the idea of a vegan glow or weak quote-unquote soy boys, misinformation thrives everywhere for a bunch of reasons. What are those reasons? Things like the confirmation bias. People are drawn to ideas that align with the beliefs they already have. We love to be confirmed in what we already think. For example, if you're skeptical of vegan diets, you might latch on to claims that vegans can't get enough protein and that B12 supplementation is proof that it's not safe. Social proof is another reason. When misinformation spreads in like-minded groups, it gains credibility so quickly just because others who seem to be like us or seem to be powerful and beautiful believe it, and then we share it too. The repetition effect, hearing the same misinformation repeated, can make it actually seem true, even if it's baseless. Back in the 80s, I was a Russian and Soviet studies major in college, and the famous quote attributed to Vladimir Lenin was, "A lie told often enough becomes the truth." Well, I don't think he made that up. I think that's something people have known for millennia. On both sides, every side of political points of view, authoritarians, unscrupulous groups have known it forever. It's human nature, I'm afraid, but when the human brain knows how quickly and easily falsehoods, half-truths, misinformation spread, we can be ready and we can be thinking critically. Then there's the topic of framing and anchoring. We all have our own early childhood narratives. We have our own experiences that shape how we think about certain issues. And if you were raised in a family that thinks of veganism as extreme, it takes a lot of effort to reframe it as mainstream or sensible or even possible. In other homes, we're raised believing certain meats are unclean, bizarre, or unhealthy. These ideas also we can carry from early childhood, and they tend to stick. So my veg your bestie, how do we protect our vegan journeys how do we protect it from misinformation or from people saying things that we feel provoked by? Well, there are some strategies I think we can all use to counter misinformation without exhausting ourselves. And first of all, to just notice this is a human tendency. It's been around a long time. It's a human tendency to share and expound on subjects with very little or even no information. and then just cut people some slack for doing the thing that we all can find ourselves doing unless we are proactively thinking about a scientific method. We want to treat claims, whether they're about our health, the environment, legal issues, supplements, animal welfare. We want to treat it all as a hypothesis. Test each hypothesis by seeking what kind of reputable or evidence-based sources even exist on the topic. If you hear a claim that soy is harmful, take a look. Are there peer-reviewed studies rather than just anecdotes or podcast hosts who expound on it? And consider pushing back that burden of proof. Maybe you think, I need to be ready to argue my point or defend my lifestyle or my choices. But if someone makes an extraordinary claim like vegan diets are dangerous, ask for them to offer the evidence. I think that's advice from Carl Sagan. I'm not sure, but I'm sure others have said it before him. Misinformation thrives because the burden of proof starts getting shifted to those who are refuting it, to those who don't believe it. You can just flip the script by saying, that's interesting. Where's the source for that? Could you share that with me? And choose your battles, honestly. Not every piece of misinformation requires a detailed rebuttal, especially not at Thanksgiving, but ever. Focus on myths that significantly impact you or the people around you. Maybe it's protein. Maybe it's misconceptions about legumes or soy. Maybe it's about B12. And when you suspect misinformation, share your sources with others who are there, others who might be listening, instead of trying to convince the other person spreading what you consider to be misinformation. You can frame your responses in a way that resonates with your listeners' values, like learning what scientific and technology sources are even studying the issues that you're talking about. Is it health? Is it compassion towards animals? Is it climate change? And give people the room to shift. Give people the emotional and psychologically safe room to open up their beliefs or feel that they can talk to you without feeling attacked, even if you don't feel like you're getting that same courtesy. For example, instead of saying, that's wrong, you might say, I used to think that too. I agree with you. That's how I felt for a long time. But then I started learning about X. Then I started hearing so-and-so. Then I started reading the next doctor that you can quote. I can send you the links if you're interested. I'd love to know what you think. It's the holidays. And for some of us, this could be a tough one. So remember, that's interesting. Would you send me the link where you learned that? And in your own world, question bold claims about diets, health, animal welfare, sustainability. Evaluate photos, infographics, posts. Does the article or graphic cite where it got the information? Is it dated? Did the information come from the Cattlemen's Association or from PETA, the People for Ethical Treatment of Animals? I'm not saying either one is wrong, but we might be skeptical of both. So look beyond the headline. And if someone's comfortable asserting very bold ideas without any evidence, I personally believe it's also fine to dismiss it for the time being without offering any evidence. Refuting misinformation takes energy, lots more energy than just saying or repeating something without doing your own due diligence. So this holiday, and maybe forever. Try to focus on the ideas that matter most to you on your plant-based journey. As you may know, I have never said that a plant-based or vegan lifestyle is the healthiest lifestyle for you, because guess what? I don't know that, and I don't even have any right to say that. There are very healthy vegan lifestyles and also not so healthy choices that are vegan. And I'm also not a physician, and the vegan and plant-based physicians who have been on this podcast or been quoted by me, they'll tell you their own expert opinions, but even they haven't met you. There are very few simple, unambiguous truths out there, and there is many a slip between what we think we're eating, how we think we're living, and how it is that we're actually showing up. Human beings are messy. It's actually a beautiful trait. So my Veg Your Bestie, it's your vegan journey. Yep. Misinformation may surface from any quarter, from your friends, your family, from your media, even your own assumptions. By approaching all aggressive claims with curiosity, by applying some critical thinking and sharing your own sources kindly but confidently, you'll not only strengthen your own path and your own respect for yourself, but you'll also inspire others to do more of the same. We really can decide not to take part in Brandolini's BS asymmetry principle. We can just keep planting seeds of truth and education and holding ourselves to standards of critical thinking. The more you learn, I think the better you'll veg your best. And happy Thanksgiving. Veg Your Best podcast production, music, and editing by Charlie Weinshank. Thanks, Charlie. Before you go, it would mean so much to me and the Veg Your Best team if you would hit subscribe, leave us a 5-star review, or share with someone you think might be interested. Something about algorithms, it helps bump us up a little in the rankings, and that's the best way to help others find the podcast and for us to find our audience. So, until next week, make it easy and veg your best.